The WNBA is experiencing the biggest surge of popularity in its entire history. Sold-out arenas, record television ratings, millions of new fans, Caitlin Clark at the center of all of it. And somehow, the league is falling apart from the inside. A private letter written by two of the biggest stars in the league leaked to the media. A player survey appeared that almost nobody believed. A mysterious deadline showed up out of nowhere. And a strike vote made the unthinkable suddenly very real. The union says the players are united, but the leaked letter says something completely different. So how did the WNBA go from its greatest moment in history to its biggest internal crisis? The answer starts with a document that was never supposed to go public. For months, the official message from the WNBA Players Association was simple and consistent. The players were unified, negotiations were progressing, leadership was confident a transformational deal was coming. That was the public story. Behind the scenes, a completely different reality was building. As negotiations dragged on without clear progress, frustration began spreading across the league. Players felt they weren't getting real answers about what was happening at the bargaining table. Deadlines were approaching. Stakes were enormous. And communication between union leadership and the players themselves had apparently broken down. Eventually, that frustration reached two of the most powerful players in the sport. Kelsey Plum and Breanna Stewart decided to put their concerns in writing. The two stars sent a private letter directly to the WNBPA's executive director, the person responsible for guiding the entire negotiation. The message wasn't subtle. According to reports, the letter expressed serious frustration about the lack of transparency inside the union. Players were being left in the dark about decisions that could shape the future of their careers and their league. Under normal circumstances, this letter would have stayed completely private. Internal disagreements inside a players' union happen in every professional sport. They're almost always handled quietly behind closed doors. Almost nobody outside the organization ever hears about them. But this letter leaked. And the moment it reached the media, the carefully maintained image of unity completely collapsed. The public exposure of the letter created a problem far worse than the frustrations described inside it. Because in sports labor negotiations, unity is the most valuable asset a players' union has. When players stand together with one voice, they apply enormous pressure on ownership. Owners are forced to take demands seriously. Concessions become necessary. Progress happens. But the moment cracks appear in that unity, the dynamic flips entirely. Former sports executive David Sampson was direct about what the leak meant. His assessment was blunt. The side that shows division in negotiations almost always loses leverage, and the leaked letter gave the owners something they couldn't have manufactured themselves: public evidence that the union wasn't operating as a unified group. Instead of facing a solid wall of players, ownership could now see exactly where the fractures were. That information changes everything at a negotiating table. Instead of rushing toward a deal, the owners could afford to be patient. Instead of making concessions under pressure, they could wait and watch the internal tension inside the union do their work for them. The longer the union struggled publicly, the stronger the ownership position became. And the crisis was only getting started. With the leaked letter dominating the conversation, the WNBPA needed to respond fast. Their answer was a player survey. According to the union, players across the league had been asked a direct question about the owner's current proposal. The results were announced with a number designed to shut down all criticism immediately: 84%. The WNBPA claimed 84% of participating players rejected the league's offer and supported continuing negotiations for a better deal. On paper, that sounded like overwhelming unity. Nearly the entire league standing together. But instead of calming the situation, the survey made everything worse, because credibility was already gone. Critics immediately started asking questions the union couldn't publicly answer. How many players actually participated? Were all players given the same information before voting? Was the proposal explained clearly and completely to everyone involved? Were the results independently verified by anyone outside the union? None of those questions had clear answers. And that uncertainty fueled a theory that spread quickly across sports media. Some analysts suggested the survey wasn't really about measuring player opinion at all. It looked like an attempt to repair the image of unity that the leaked letter had just destroyed. Whether that was true or not, the perception was devastating. Because now fans and analysts were questioning not just the strategy, but the basic honesty of the information coming out of the union. While the union was managing the fallout, the owners made their next move. A date appeared in the negotiations that instantly became the center of everything. March 10th. The message attached to that date was straightforward. If the two sides couldn't reach meaningful progress by then, the upcoming season could face serious disruption. For fans, that sounded terrifying. The WNBA was finally experiencing the kind of momentum it had waited decades to build. The idea of games being delayed or canceled felt almost unthinkable. But several analysts who study sports labor negotiations immediately recognized what the deadline actually was: a psychological weapon. Deadlines in negotiations rarely function as hard stops. They function as pressure generators. They force the other side to make faster decisions. They amplify every internal disagreement. And they turn the cost of inaction from abstract to immediate. For a union already dealing with a leaked letter, a disputed survey, and public questions about its leadership, a hard deadline was exactly the kind of pressure that could crack things further. Players start worrying about lost games and lost paychecks. Some push for compromise, others insist on holding firm. Those differences create more internal tension, and the owners sit back and watch the union apply pressure to itself. It was a strategic masterstroke, and it worked exactly as designed. Facing all of that pressure, the union made its most dramatic move. In December, the WNBA voted almost unanimously to authorize a strike if negotiations reached a breaking point. Union leaders called their goal securing a transformational collective bargaining agreement. They argued the current proposal didn't reflect the league's rapid growth. They wanted a deal that truly prioritized the athletes making the sport possible. The vote was meant to send an unmistakable message. The players were serious. But the announcement didn't land the way the union hoped. Instead of generating a united wave of fan support, it triggered the most intense backlash of the entire negotiation. Because the timing created an impossible contradiction. The WNBA was finally breaking into mainstream sports conversation. New fans were discovering the league every week. Sponsorships were growing. Television partners were paying more attention than ever. And the primary reason for all of it had one name: Caitlin Clark. Her arrival hadn't just brought excitement. It had changed the economic reality of the entire league. Sold-out arenas, record-breaking broadcasts, merchandise selling out nationally, fans traveling across the country specifically to watch her play. That momentum was the single most powerful argument the union had for demanding a better deal. But threatening to stop the games, to eliminate the very product that had just attracted millions of new fans, risked destroying the leverage the union was trying to use. Some fans accused the union of gambling with the league's biggest opportunity in decades. Others supported the players completely, arguing they deserved fair compensation from the growth they had helped create. Both sides had a point. But the uncomfortable reality was this: Clark's presence had made the WNBA more valuable than ever before. And a strike during the league's most visible moment in history could damage the exact momentum that made this negotiation worth having in the first place. Here's what the entire situation actually reveals. The WNBA is standing at the most important crossroads in its history. The league finally has the attention of the sports world. New fans are arriving. Media investment is growing. The financial opportunity ahead is larger than anything the league has ever seen. But that growth has also exposed every crack in the foundation. A leaked letter that destroyed the image of unity. A survey that raised more questions than it answered. A deadline that amplified internal division. A strike vote that risked the very momentum driving the negotiation. Every single one of those developments happened in public, watched by millions of fans who had just started paying attention. The players deserve better compensation. That argument is legitimate and backed by real numbers. But the strategy used to pursue it has made the road to that compensation significantly harder, because in the end, the owners didn't need to defeat the union at the negotiating table. The leaked letter did it for them. Is the WNBA union fighting for its players or making the worst possible mistakes at the worst possible moment? Drop your take in the comments. We read every single one. Subscribe and turn on notifications for more breakdowns on the biggest stories shaping women's basketball. We'll see you on the next one.